Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Rafin, and the wonderful audience that I think is international. I'm very glad to be on this renowned program, and I've heard so much about it. And this is my second time on Unboxed, and really, it is awesome to be here. Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you for accepting the invite. Yeah.
You're most welcome. So here we are at the cusp of some great achievements worldwide. I want you to think of the following, that here you are as a teacher, probably you are in leadership as well, and you need to now orientate yourself. But let's begin at the grassroots. And what is the grassroots? The grassroots is teaching itself. What is teaching? How is it that the teacher is actually the broad base upon which every other management structure develops? And if your teacher base is sound, then surely, the management is going to look at the teacher differently and hence look at the school differently. So we got an exciting program here this afternoon for me, but evening for most of you on that side. And I want you to ask yourself the question. And I'm going to pause for just a minute, less than a minute, because you can answer it in your mind, or you can perhaps write it down. Two questions. One, what do you want to be remembered for as a teacher? Question two, what is the legacy as the teacher you will have? You got it? Okay, so you're probably playing with that with those questions in your mind. And at this point in time, I would like the my honorable host to play the video. Now, this video that is going to be played to you, let me give you the background to it, right? No, I think I'm gonna let you watch the video and savor it and let it play on the mind as to how did this come to being. So, Sister Rafin, if you could play the video for us first, and then we will take the program from there, inshallah.
Sure, I'll do it right away.
Okay, fine. While that is being done, I want you to imagine that your classroom is the stage for the world, right? It's not the Hollywood, Bollywood, Nollywood. This is your wood, right? And that is you on stage, and you got the whole world watching. And the problem is you are the director, you are the producer, and you're the script writer, and you have to do everything on cue. So let's watch the video, and thereafter we continue with what is, I think, going to be a wonderful discussion here this evening.
And the other nomination is the Insomniacs from South Africa. Congratulations to them. This team ran a literacy campaign as their country strives to achieve a 100% literacy rate, wanting to infuse a love for reading and improve literacy skills. They hosted readathons and spelling bees in local, less advantaged towns, building this into their project plan to deliver results for the project and the community. And the winner is the Insomniacs from South Africa. Well done, guys. Well done, guys.
Right. So you watch the video of the Sangari 4x4 challenge that is hosted by the 4x4 group Land Rover. It is an international program that really starts with a bang. It took us 3 years to get there. So that means the pupils were in grade 8 when they started the program in the December year. of their grade 8 year. So that means when they got into grade 9 and grade 10, grade 11, and that they were now ready for this. So what I'm trying to tell you, your success at teaching is not going to be seen in the first year. Your success at the program that you're going to establish in the school is not going to be seen in the first year. Now, the background to this challenge was that the pupils were to design a car before the whole, I would say, influence of AI as we see it today, right? And they then had to prepare themselves and develop cars that would navigate a certain track. And the story is very long, and they had to win regional competition in South Africa, qualify as a national champions in grade 10, and then go towards that in grade 12. But they had to learn speaking skills. They had to go out to the community and do some project work that lasted 2 years. And in all of that, they still had to do the schooling. They learned design, they learned artwork, they learned, you name it, they learned it. When we went to London, when we went to the UK, and we were amongst 150 odd countries, and we were the underdogs there. But what was surprising, the team Germany came to ask us, Team South Africa, as to how we can do some repair work on their car. And we're like, hello, you guys are Germany, man. The Mercedes comes from you. But the learning started in school, where you made your classroom the project for the world beyond it. Okay? And what does it mean? You had to teach the child, unknown to you at the time, that he or she is going to interact with an international audience. So you got to refine speaking skills. You got to refine presentation skills. You got to refine letter writing, and the list goes on. And over and above that, you got to establish in their minds that you're a Muslim. You are going to go there. Are you going to wear the kurta and go on stage? How are you going to do that? And you know what, people? The boys understood the deen, they understood the religion, and it wasn't for me to say you must wear the kurta, you know. Surprise, surprise. They came into the into the studio on that particular day wearing the kurta, and there it was. So that is the first part of the lesson, which I want you to understand, that look here, what you are doing in the class this very moment is not going to be seen as a great lesson or a wonderful program immediately. No, you got to wait. Just like how a flower opens and you cannot rush the opening of a flower, the children in your care are flowers which you are now watering and grooming, and they will blossom at the right time. So that is the first part of the program here this evening, and I hope you are beginning to think that in these children's minds there is something they remember about the teacher. I mean, I can go through each one of them, and each one of them are accomplished in their own field, but all are not studying. The one gentleman whose father is not very wealthy, could not go to university, he's become a very good skilled handyman. And he says, one day, sir, I'm going to own my own company and I'll be doing work here. And that's my trade. So the other has qualified as an engineer, and the other one is now in Finland. He's doing some amazing work there. So, Rafin, I don't know whether you have a question at this point in time for me to continue the trajectory of this amazing program here this evening. Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
So, well, what I would like to extend now is a discussion on one of the first lessons that I did. It's called Teaching with Flair. Now, the background to this, and the PowerPoint will be shown just now, but I'm going to talk to that very briefly and then talk about what you can do as a teacher to expand the knowledge of teaching, right? So for years, I thought about how can you make Shakespeare familiar with the teachers, with the pupils, so that they can engage with the language. But at the same time, I asked the question, how can they be concise in their speech, as Shakespeare is, obviously, but very metaphorical too. So, unknown to me at the time that there was going to be a Microsoft Innovative Teacher Award that would start up. And we were the inaugural participants, right? And we went to the United States of America and we presented this very same lesson to an audience of perhaps maybe 300 to 500 people, and about 150 of them were educators from different countries of the world. So I want you to think of the following. How many of you are teaching English? And how many of you are teaching English for whom it is a second or third language? And I'm sure many of you find that scenario, right? So in South Africa, when I started this, I had pupils for whom English was a second language. The majority English was a first language for them, but Shakespeare was foreign to them. So now this is how I would like you to think of teaching any book, right? I want you to think of the following, right? And I would like the PowerPoint to come up so that we can talk you through it. I want you to ask yourself this question now, and this is the third question I'm asking you. If you were given the best class, all right, who would you choose to be in that class? All right, who would you choose to be in that class? You got an answer? I see I said people are saying, no, maybe this one, maybe that one. Next question. In your mind, define that class. How many of them are the best you'd ever want? How many of them have no discipline problems? Aha. You know what you're doing? In your mind, you're defining a utopia. In your mind, you're defining a perfect classroom. That does not exist. Please, I beg you, don't ever think a classroom is a perfect setting. So now, here we are. So we'll go to the next slide there. So teaching with flair, right? It's dynamic, right? So we go to the next slide if you can. And now we are taking media into the classroom. So here we have a lesson, right, where we're looking at having to say, okay, if I were to teach Shakespeare, and I'm taking, let's say, Macbeth, for example, it's tough. Okay, I'm seeming to get some buffering on this side here, but not a problem. Am I clear to you, Rafid? Hello?
Yes, you are, Alhamdulillah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, lovely, lovely. Just give me a cue. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay,
Sure.
so how often do we tell the teenagers, wait until you get out there, then you learn the real world. People, the real world is your classroom. It's not a Mickey Mouse world there. It's not Hollywood and Bollywood. It is the real class. You got real teachers there in your school. You got the children in your classroom were affected by poverty, war, Gaza, you name it, they're affected. So now, when you tell the child, hey, wait till you get out in the real world, they're saying, hello, where am I currently? So you need to open the avenues of your class to the realities outside the classroom. Remember, to the parent, the school is a reality, but different from the reality of his work. But you cannot damage that reality for the child. And you cannot conflate and make it difficult for the parent at home, because remember, all of them are not educated like you. So we go now to the next slide there, and it is about how I want you to think, right, in terms of everything that happens in the classroom. Now, when your classroom is open, right, now you got everything with media with you. Right, you got AI, you got ChatGPT, you got this, you got that. I want you to think of the following, that at this point in time, artificial intelligence have taken over social media as well. So now I want you to think, how can you bring that into the classroom? This is the idea, and this is what we did before. We said, okay, we're going to use media in the classroom. In that time, the modus operandi was the radio, and radio is still hugely effective and hugely popular too. So we started teaching the children radio techniques. Now, I want you to think, when you're on radio, you need to speak in a different form. Think of television now. When you're on television, when you're on any network for that matter, you need to have a certain aura, you need to have a certain presence, you need to have a certain way in which you speak and the way you look at an audience, correct? Now, imagine your English classroom is this, that you say, hello, today Put your books away. We're teaching you poise. We're teaching you refinement of hand techniques. We're teaching you how to have verbal dynamics. That means when you speak, how do you use your hands? How do you use your how do you lift your face and make eye contact, whatever. Sir, is that all about acting? I said, yes. Now you can act because you're on radio. So we started doing I started getting pupils doing audio samples. That time you had to bring a mic into the classroom, attach it to a speaker, and you speak aloud, and that gets recorded. It was quite cumbersome because the technology wasn't so advanced. So we got pupils to prepare their own films on Macbeth. I said, listen, this is Act 1, Scene 1. I want you to choose a setting. I want you to choose this. And the funny thing was, man, these boys went to a Qabristan of the non-Muslims, and they photographed, they filmed all the tombstones, right? And they said, this is where now we're going to film where the three witches are going to meet Macbeth. I want you to think of the imagination. They've internalized Act 1, Scene 1. When shall we three meet again? In thunder, lightning, or rain? When the hurly-burly is done, there to meet with Macbeth. And they then take that eerie setting of the graveyard, right? And they make this video. But remember, in those days, it's not so smart like the smartphone. They used all these big cameras, and they're to import it onto a certain platform that time where they got the graphics as you see it today so easily done. So now I asked them, right, I want you to watch a news bulletin and I want you to listen to a radio clip and give me the features. And they said, sir, hello, it works like this. The news bulletin is not longer than 3 minutes. There's an advert that comes in that's not longer than maybe a minute. And there's always something on the side that ushers in the news broadcast. So I said, fine, let's look at that now and we go further. So if you look at the slide 4 there, it's all about a South African link about outcome-based education, FETC, the Further Education and Training Band, which obviously is grade 10 to 12. And the RNCS at the time, which was the revised national curriculum statement. Today we have CAPS. What I'm trying to tell you, that today's situation, the curriculum has changed dramatically, but you have to change in the way you teach. So what did we do now? Okay, so what did we do? I said to the pupils to look here. I don't know much about the media. You're going to help me. So I started teaching at that time, PowerPoint, this, that. Now think of your situation currently. You tell the child, hey man, can you help me with Instagram? Can you help me with making a reel, making this? Sir, we'll help you. But what are we going to do? Sir, today, I think we can work on one soliloquy of maybe Julius Caesar, and we can bring it to light. So now they are beginning to unpack a difficult language suitable to a social media platform that is quick, like TikTok, but it must be concise and vibrant. So they're honing in on skills that they're going to use out there, but they're using foreign content. Now, let me explain that. Isn't that the reality? Foreign content is out there all the time. They're dealing with news. They're dealing with the war in Gaza. They're dealing with probable, same-sex attraction and, gender dysphoria. How do we marry the two? How do we talk about it from an Islamic perspective? You don't have to be intolerant in your language, but you imitate the media, because every form of media is indoctrination. So I then got them to do the following. So on my side, right, I'm on I'm on slide 6. So slide 6, I wanted to play audio, and I'm going to do the audio for you, and I want you to think. The children were told, listen, you guys, we're doing a play, we're doing a news bulletin, and I'm just taking off the cuff now. You are going to do a report of the of Romeo and Juliet. And then I want something advertised of Romeo and Juliet. Then you must give me the weather pattern of what is happening. And it went something like this. First of all, I want you to imagine the class was quiet and the pupil came to the front and she pressed play. And it went, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to News on the Hour with your host. And they gave a name, Nadia, I remember. And then suddenly there was this silence in the background. Ooh, all silence in the background. It said, we open at the scene of the Capulets. And she gives a background of the violence that broke out and Mercutio and all of that. And she says, to the best effect, I remember at the time, and we had, people of different genders, people who have, she said something to that effect. I don't know, I'm just playing it up. I want you to understand the excitement there. And for that time, it was like, oh my God, what is she going to say next? And then the news bulletin ends with that part, then go to secondary news bulletin. And we also want to tell you about the latest mailing form that is currently going to take place. We're going to send things by horseback to this place and to that place. Right? Remember Romeo and Juliet, how the communication gets messed up. And they're talking of a love potion. And they're talking of potions. If you take this potion, you won't get up, but hey, it will fool the person around you. You're making something real for them. And then they end up with a weather pattern. Today in Naples, the weather is so and so. Unknown to me, they were studying the techniques of the media presenters out there that they listen to. Again, it's their world. When they drive to school, they're listening to the news. And like that, every other child started coming up and they were doing this wonderful news bulletin. So imagine how it worked with Macbeth, how it worked with Julius Caesar and other plays, To Kill a Mockingbird, you name it, we did it to a certain extent. I want you to pause for a moment and think, if you're teaching the seerah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and you tell the person, right, you got 3 minutes. I want you to put up a news bulletin and something to advertise about the seerah. Now, you can talk about, the life of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam at a particular point, and you can perhaps create an advertisement about going for Umrah, and how would Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had advertised at that time that he's going to do his Hajj. How would you bring up the Treaty of Hudaybiyah in a news bulletin? So that said, I go back to a point which I look at again, slide 6 here, and that is, I want you to imagine, right, the current history of South Africa, right, taking the whole issue to the ICJ. Now, we did a novel called Cry the Beloved Country. And here the pupils were then told to go and see a township, or what you would know as a very rural area where people live in extreme poverty. And they were pushed to the poverty lines. And they're really struggling, right? So they go there. I want you to think of a child in a rich suburb making a point to go with his parent. And I said to them, teacher is not taking you. You need to go on your own. And the school is not arranging this. You need to go on your own. And mother, father, child, dad, I need to discuss something with you, man. What's the discussion? I need to go to a township. I need to go to Soweto. I need to go to Shabbat. If you can, just Google these names and you'll see what I'm talking about. And the father takes these two or three children. They come back to school. They do a brainstorming as to how to plan and build a project and put that whole building up that time on video, and then come to class and tell you, sir, this is the reality out there. And then you use that lesson to say, okay, now that you've visited the township, you've interacted with the poorest of the poor, what is your social project that you're going to do? So what have you done? You've brought the entire world outside the classroom into the classroom, and you compared realities of both worlds. The world of the classroom which you were in and the world outside. For many of you, this is my next question. How many of you are the biggest anesthetic to the children in the classroom? When you walk in, it's like, time to sleep. Right? Think about it. Just how many of you children look at you and say, I'm boring, man. This guy is going to make us sleep. So you need to live your lessons, right? And there's a reason why, I did not want to play the clip again, because I wanted you to feel my excitement that if I were to teach grade 10, 11, and 12, this is how I'll do it. But obviously grade 12 is different now because the focus is on an exit exam. But think about how you can water this down right up to grade 4, 5, and 6, because they are interacting with TikTok. Show me, and you will. How many children have got TikTok accounts and are doing amazing stuff with it? So I would like you, Rafin, if you could just go to the very last slide, right? Slide 7. Now, if you look at the classroom is a springboard, right? The classroom is a springboard to the world outside. So if you look at slide 7, and these slides will be shared with you, you've got media as a whole, you've got the corporate environment, you've got volunteerism, you've got higher education, you've got small businesses, you've got artisan, you've got radio, you've got I want you to think of the following now, right? That your classroom, how are you going to change it? Right? So whether you're sharing a classroom, whether the pupils move around or you move to the classroom, or whether you have your own classroom, spruce it up, put pictures out there and connect it, connect it with the world, make them do posters. And that is something you're all familiar with. Now, I want you to think that you are a teacher of literature, right? How much of what you teach you've read, right? You can see behind me, alhamdulillah, there are books there that I've read, some are reference books. So when you tell the child, look here, I want you to read, and then they say, but sir, what have you read? And you're struggling for titles. It must not happen. So at this point in time, I want you to ask yourself the next question. Am I the anesthesia in the classroom, or am I the stimulant in the classroom? So remember, we started from question 1, right? And you got those questions. Now we probably, I think, question number 6. So at this point in time, I want you to imagine a pupil coming into your classroom with a prepared script. And yes, at this point in time, tell them, I want you to prompt Copilot. I want you to prompt ChatGPT and other AI on these things. Teach them prompt engineering, that if you want ChatGPT to give you the best advert, don't just accept the first advert that comes out there. Prompt it. I don't like this word. I don't like that. But do this, do that. So you really work ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot with probably 100 prompts before you come to the final product. What does this teach you? That you're telling the child, look here, I don't want you to just take the first thing you see. I want you to prompt. And the more you prompt, what happens? You're teaching the child to think. And now, when the child thinks, right? When the child thinks, the child begins to realize, I got a mind of my own. And that's the point now I bring to you. I want you to, especially with the children for whom English is a third or second language, tell them, look here, I want you, whether it's on your iPad or your Android tablet, or even on a book, which I prefer, handwritten stuff, I want you to write down at least 4 words a day and write a sentence with it. So if you've got 192 school days, 192 times 4, how much of vocabulary has the child inculcated? Because the better the vocabulary, the better thinking, right? If you can think of sadness as only with 1 word sad, how are you going to express yourself? But if you got more than 1 synonym for sad, how much more are you going to be descriptive in your news bulletin, in your speech, so on and so forth? I take you back to the video that you've seen. Those children at the time were in front of a panel of maybe 12 people, and they're to present to 12 people, right? They're to present to 12 people about their reading project and how they got to the point, right? And how they got to the point where they had to present to so many people. Okay, at this point in time, now we're going to go to the next lesson of perfection, which I thought was really cool. And I hope that was the one that would have actually won the award internationally, and it's authentic learning. Rafin, any questions from your side, or are there any questions from the panel which I can actually answer if possible? Rafin?
I don't really have any question. Let's ask the audience.
Okay, we'll take one question for now, then I'll go to the next lesson, because that's the interesting one, inshallah. Okay. In the absence of,
maybe I'll go ahead and ask.
Sure.
So I'd like to know, like, how do you naturally integrate Islamic values when teaching English across the curriculum?
That's such a deep question. You see, how do you bring Islam into it is how you actually think. So when we did Macbeth as an example, my first question to them, yes, you needed to write the exam on it that was coming from the department. I asked them, how do you think for a moment, you know, the Prophet ﷺ would have responded to the request of a man wanting to seek power by having to kill someone? So they're getting to think. Then you ask them another question. How do you think black magic and sorcery and going to witches is actually Islamic, or what isn't that common in our society today? So you bring them to the reality of what you know they're thinking about religion at that point in time. You mustn't bring in things that are too philosophical because they will not understand. Further to that, you know, I give you an example on this point. When I taught the sonnet, and we all love it, where Shakespeare says, you know, let me not do the marriage of two minds, admit impediments, love is not love, you know, that entire sonnet 116. I would ask the question, what was the spiritual love that the Sahaba or their own had for Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Can you define it in the sonnet? You know, simple things like that. Not that you're going to question that in an examination, but it was 5 minutes of the lesson, 5 minutes of a 40-minute lesson, or 5 minutes of a 60-minute lesson you gave towards religion. And mind you, that became the mainstay because they left your classroom thinking about Allah. So it's a matter of bringing it in the classroom contextually. Don't come there and give a bayan, please. When you come there and you give a bayan and you give a lecture and you sermonize, sweet pupils switch off. For example, when we taught Romeo and Juliet, right? The question was, I said, look, all of you, at some point in your youth, you've been involved in some relationships, this, that, and the other. What was the most regretful thing about those relationships? And you get all the stories coming out because children speak the darnest of things and they say the darnest things and they're quite honest. And then you say, okay, now if you were to talk this to your mother, what would you say? Then you bring Allah in, you bring Rasulullah in, and you bring the teaching of a hadith in as well. And suddenly you find that, okay, the discussion goes on and they see Romeo and Juliet to a different light. And they do not say, oh, I want to be the Romeo of the world, or I want to be the Juliet of the world. You know the point I'm making. So I think that should help you, and it's quite easy. It's quite easy if you have a reading of the Seerah yourself. It's quite easy if you read a lot of Islamic literature as well, or you listen to good podcasts, so you can bring it into your classroom. The point I'm making, you as the teacher must be versatile, practical. You must be an actor. You know, you mustn't be shy. As I'm not shy, I would stand up on the chair and I would make a speech, you know, and I would do things and I would laugh with the children. And if I make a mistake, I say, oh my God, I made a mistake. And I should mention, you know, Rafin, just in the second term, when I was doing speeches, I told the pupils, well, I'm going to give a speech. And I prepared my speech and I said it to the pupils. And I said, now you give me a speech and you give me a mark. And the one pupil said, sir, I'm only giving you, I think, 17 out of 20, and I failed you on this, and I brought you down on this point. And I said, fine. And the other pupil said, but how can you do that to the teacher? I said, how could I refuse how could I refuse my teacher? How could I complain about my teacher? They say, sir, who's your teacher? I said, no, that girl. So as a teacher, you mustn't be afraid, you know, that I can also, my mistakes mustn't be seen. No, man, be your normal self. Okay, so I got the last 15, 20 minutes here, and I want to use this to talk about a brilliant lesson, which I think, you know, I want you to think about this, right? And this lesson is called authentic learning. Now, this lesson really came about when I thought of the seerah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, asking myself how the truth of the seerah be maintained throughout history. And yes, Allah will protect it. And then this happened while I was teaching history now. And I said to myself, okay, so if you can teach history authentically, that means you must preserve the original text of it. And I had the advantage of teaching history and English. So this is how it emerged. So when I taught Cry the Beloved Country, and I taught Nadine Godimer's July's People, very difficult novel to teach. And I said to them, okay, now, at the time in South Africa, you had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And that was a very difficult period in South Africa because we listened to horrific stories of people who were tortured and butchered and burnt and bride and barbecued while other people were having liquor on the side. These are real stories, you know. The horrors of Gaza obviously are more tremendous and overwhelming. So again, the classroom becomes a springboard to the reality beyond it, right? So if you can put on the slide of the authentic learning, Rafina, I would appreciate that. When what we
Yeah,
teach
I'll
is
do
not
that.
made,
Brother,
okay,
yeah.
yeah,
If you see the slide is not changing, please prompt me because it happened in the earlier slide, right?
okay, no
I was
problem.
changing, but it wasn't reflecting. Yeah. So you just
No,
prompt
no,
me
it's
that it's
fine.
not changing. Yeah.
Okay, what
Thank
can,
you.
well, the fact that we're sharing these slides with whoever and on your platform, I think they'll pick it up because I love to talk through it, but we can put the authentic
Sure.
learning PowerPoint now, inshallah.
All right.
So while that is coming on, I want you to think, right? You got the war in Gaza, you got the war in Ukraine, you got the trouble in Kashmir, you got the genocide in Sudan, and so on and so forth. But go back 70, 80 years, where are all those stories? Right? Where are all those stories? So this idea came about, and I want you to, if you can, write this blogspot down, Val Earrings, blogspot.com, right? It's still available. The pupils actually each of them started their own blogspot because I was teaching blogging, right? And blogging was the means for them one day to have their own website. And once they have their own website, they own the learning. So if we can go to slide on the prompt there, if you can go to slide number, okay, you can go to slide number 5, right? If you can, just prompt, go to slide number 5, please. Okay, while slide number 5 is being prompted, pupils were told, look here, we're studying Cry the Beloved Country, and we're studying the novel. I want you to find out those people in your community, not outside there in America and far from you, in your community, whether it's a small community or a bigger community. Find out who were the stalwarts, who were the activists who resisted apartheid. And you can see in the slide there's a guy there, his nickname was Babu, right? Now, he was actually an activist in South Africa at the time. It's an amazing story, just to make you understand, right? And he was Babu Kaji, subhanAllah. He went underground to Czechoslovakia, I remember, and he learned how to undo whatever training he went to, and he came back to South Africa and he joined the Mkhonto Wesizwe. And here these children sit and they say, Uncle, it's you. We see you in the mosque. Yeah, yes, this was our time. We had to resist the apartheid movement because they killed so and so. And then you see on the other picture there's a black woman that the girls interviewed who was in the township, and her family were activists. And I remember her family members were killed by the apartheid regime at the time. And then they came back to Roshni and they said, okay, now how do we document this? You know, so pupils were exposed now to real life people who experienced apartheid. When they opened the book, Cry the Beloved Country, as a case in point, they realized, man, it's actually real. People were troubled. So when they then looked at the murder of Jarvis, they said, but a black person in a very difficult surrounded by poverty and overwhelmed by it, surely he did not kill out of hatred. He killed for a different reason. So you can already see that you're making the child aware that, number one, a text has potential for meaning. You bring meaning to the text. And I want you to think, right? I want you to think of the following, right? If you can go to the next slide, please. Now, when a child's intellect is made more open by experience, you bring that experience to the text. Now, here were students, not one, not two, the whole class. They were interviewing they were interviewing activists wherever they were. Some were very, very high up and some were very low, but they were there. Now they come to class with that experience. How are they going to read the text? You and I, we read the text in front of the child and the text is boring, it is dry, because it doesn't have meaning in their life. So the children then started writing their interviews down. Now, there's another writing skill they're using. And then you ask them, okay, at this point in time, why are you doing that? How would you document the life of a Sahabi? How would you interview? How would you script an interview with a Sahabi, you know, or with the Prophet ﷺ? So you create that conversation in the classroom. So what happens? Your lesson is layered. You know, you layer a lesson. Because isn't that what life is about? You come out of your garage, there's a billboard, there's this one fighting, that one screaming down the passageway. Everything is layered. Nothing in life is a tunnel where there's no interference, no ways. It is hectic. So I want you to think of making your classroom alive. And wherever you are in the world, there are people who have been through something. Think about documenting the people whose small businesses were closed down as a result of big corporates. And there are so many of that in India, which I've read about. You know, people used to make certain wonderful jellies. I'm just using the word, but that was closed down because the corporates took it over. Imagine getting their stories. Imagine getting stories of people whose parents died in a natural disaster. And when you take that natural disaster accounts into a geography classroom, that lesson on tsunamis and earthquake becomes real. And the springboard from there is, okay, now you've seen this family wiped out because of a flood. What are you going to do to educate people about natural disasters? So I want you to think on this, right? Let's go to the next slide, right? You know, Dan Brown, you can go to the next slide. He's got a new book out, and hopefully I'll to make it my reading. It's called Mysteries and something. I like the title just now. Imagine you bring that book into the classroom and you say, right, I want you to interview people who have conspiracy theories, you know, and then you lead them to say, okay, these are the conspiracy theories of the world. Now I want you to read perhaps the book of the end, right? The book of the end, or the book of the end of times, a hadith of the end of times. I want you to think now about documenting that. How would you bring the two together? For example, crazy example, Dan Brown having a interview, you know, hypothetically speaking, with Imam so and so who wrote the book The End of Time, and they come to this identity. Hello, this is one view, this is another view, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Teaching critical thinking, teaching skills beyond the classroom. That's why I'm going to show up on the screen. Now, this is the book I've written, Teach and Read, right? And this is the workbook, right? And I'm very pleased to say Mimbar Academy, alhamdulillah, purchased a number of these books, and hopefully you'll get to learn how you now document your lessons, right? So what did you do in the classroom? You made children document, you start documenting. So I want you to imagine how lively your classroom can become. So we go to the next slide now, right? There you are. So there's the picture of the book that you've seen there. Now, we go to the next slide, right? It's a slide that I can just pinpoint you to. It's a slide of the basketball there, right? So your classroom now, right? Yeah, lovely. Your classroom must, in your mind, be the playground of activity. So it must lend itself to extended opportunities. You must teach for 22% of the time. And I say, I don't mean exactly 22% of the time, but you know, you teach for a shorter period, you work in class for a balance of the time, and your portfolio NCS work, that is where I say, wherever you are in the world, whatever has to be done in terms of the curriculum, you get it done because you've got the time. There's a barakah effect. So once you start teaching pupils that you got to make every minute count, you bring in Islam into it. That you're saying, look, every minute counts. So then you teach them how to journal their own life. Because you says, look there, I've compartmentalized a lesson into 3 parts or 4 parts. Your life, from the time you wake up for Fajr Salah, are you having a 30-minute schedule as to how you do things till the end of the day? And suddenly you're creating a discipline in the child. But where did it start? It started in the classroom of English. You taught Islam, but you're not sermonizing it. So I want you to look at the part that says extended opportunities. I want you to imagine your classroom that you are the teacher of English, but at the same time, you're connecting with the teacher of for some reason I got cut off there. Are we still on, Rafin?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, I just had a small glitch there from my side. So extended opportunities is how you connect yourself with other teachers. So what happens now? Every school has got more politics in the staff room than the United Nations have passed resolutions. It happens, this one talks about that one talks about that one. But imagine the discussions in the staff room starts coming about on, hey, what did you do in your English class today? Can I help you? We can do an economic activity on how to perhaps sell this item, but this item is actually coming out of my book, which we need to design labels for someone. So this is how I would like you to think about it. So I've brought you through 2 lessons, but it extends to history, geography, so on and so forth. There's just so much to talk about. It's amazing to think how much your classroom actually has within it. But we sort of, we sort of just become so I would say insular. All right. So that's the one part, and I'm sure we'll send this to you. Rafi, if you can, there was some rubrics that you can just flight it on the screen to show you that you can actually, mark the audio assignment, and now you can tweak it differently to your advantage, because all of you are familiar with rubrics. You can create your own rubric, which you will see shortly. And then I've got extended opportunities as a Word document, which will be shared perhaps with you on whichever platform, about Gaza. How the entire lesson on Gaza, for example, can be a history lesson extending from one part of literature or literature and history that you're doing across the world. Whether you're talking about the American Revolution, the French Revolution, you can bring in Gaza as well and draw parallels. What is liberty? What is fraternity? What is, liberty, equality, fraternity? What is that? You can talk about things and connect the realities. So your classroom becomes so much more greater. Now, on the slide that you see there, I want to end off by saying you will find that there's a little on the top right hand corner, there are books. Those books, I must say, gosh, I can't believe I forgot to mention this. Subhanallah. You know what happened is that everything we did, right, as you can see there, the children started writing their own little booklets. Remember, this is a time, and they're still doing it now. They wrote their books on their study of apartheid, and they connected it to the novel they studied or to Shakespeare that they did. And for example, Nadine Gordimer's book, July's People, was a very difficult novel. So they actually took out one part of the book where this one child who was playing with a little doll, I remember. So they wrote a children's book for preschoolers, My Little Book, another one, The Little Thief. And they made these colorful books, right? And they took it to a preschool. They got it evaluated because the teacher had to read it to those children, and the children enjoyed it. And subsequently, later in this, like I said, Allah shows you later on, a grade 9 pupil, in the school, Roshni Islamic School at the time, published her book on Amazon when I was still writing mine. And she said, "Sir, I've already sold about 30 odd copies at $11. So what is your book about? I want to read it." And that was the most empowering moment. And this lesson, the books that you're seeing there, was done at a time with different pupils in a different age. And I brought the same ideas into the current century I'm teaching. And voila, in this time, 10, 15 years after the teaching it, pupils actually got the books published on Amazon as an example. And I published mine. And another book that I've written on Al-Falah College, inshallah, make dua that book gets published, you know, the historiography of the school. So what I'm trying to tell you here now, you are there. Why don't you write about the school you're in? Write the teacher, the principal, get the pupils to write about the school and write it, make it the unique biography of the school. So I've said all of that to inspire you and make you feel great again as the teacher. Rafin, I don't know if there are any questions, because I think I've spoken and spoken and spoken. Subhanallah. Jazakallah khair. I await some questions before the program ends. I think we've got roughly 5 or 7 minutes, Rafin.
Do you want me to share those slides, the
Yes,
pictures,
please.
the template?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can share that.
And if you have any questions, please drop it in the chat box.
Okay. Okay. You know, the one question that was sent to me earlier by a friend in South Africa who said, I'll be presenting. He says, where do you get the energy from? And I said to the person, what is your lifestyle like? You know, you've got to become active as an individual, because your body is an amanah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you tell pupils this, they love it. You can see this is a picture perfect day. You can see in the picture pupils playing around the Shabdal project. There are pictures all over there. This can be shared. It's part of my book there. Various pictures, and you archive it, and you know, pupils begin to archive their lives as well. So it has been really fascinating throughout my teaching life that you touch the lives of children. So the best thing to do, and I would recommend to you, whether you're teaching English geography, and I know it's amazing by what I've seen and met teachers from India, in Sri Lanka when we had the conference, and also in Malaysia, the dynamics are amazing there. And you know, get fit, man, get running, jogging, cycling, you know, and then you start those clubs in the school and you become the head of it. In some way or the other, you lead it. And then when you go to school and you tell them, hey, guys, today, you know, this is how many kilometers I ran, and this is how many kilometers I cycle on the weekend. And suddenly, oh my God, we wasted our time. So the point I'm making, dear people, show them you're a human being. You can see pictures of myself in school and all of that. There you can see pictures of children acting out Macbeth. These are children who wrote the poetry anthology that you see in the front there. That anthology was published nationally, right? Poems by about maybe, I think, 100 students at the time. That was a cricket tour to Cape Town, the first cricket tour. And there you can see an article was written. And that time it was unheard of that a small community like Roshni put together a cricket team and went to Cape Town. There you can see me in my younger days, you know, when we started the Toastmasters Youth Leadership Program, and pupils graduated after 6 weeks of speech crafting, right? Again, documenting your life through photographs that have been taken. And again, you're doing this to make people understand that this is life. People document things. There are examples of myself teaching in Saudi Arabia, cycling. You can see there. This picture above was the cricket team in General Smuts where we participated and won the league. It was an amazing time. Again, you know, becoming fit, being there, being part of life. Again, drone footage of outreach programs, collecting water for communities. There was a picture of myself in Pakistan at a conference with Afaq. What I'm trying to tell you, you work hard, people invite you. You work hard, Allah takes you. And when you showcase this to the children, they realize, hey, life is good, man. Life is good. You know, so I look forward to a time visiting India, you know, and doing practical lessons with you. And let's see what the future holds. Who knows, 10, 15 years from now, what children will produce on the ideas that we plant, you know, just drop the plant. We plant it there, what will they do in 10, 15 years from now? And obviously, you bring in Islam all the time. But like I said, you don't sermonize, you don't lecture, you bring in hadith that you've learned and say, practice this, practice that. How would Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam react if he had to be in the company of Macbeth? Those are the examples of myself and Idris Kamisa with Sheikh Yawar Beg there. That was the International Teachers Award in and this afternoon for me. That's the project in Shamble we have. We have a project in Shamble where we take care of the people. Right at the bottom, you'll see the RIS Independent. We started a local newspaper at the school, which became phenomenal. Start your own newspaper at the school. Now you can do digital newspapers and let the children be the editors. There you can see the examples of the CDs that the children prepared their media on, the news bulletin, so on and so forth. You'll find it there. Starting your own magazine, the Al Huda magazine. I ran it for a full year. And there you have, once you do things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you a platform in newspapers. Here are articles from the RIS Independent that pupils have written. Why are we showing you all of this? We're showing you all of this because as the teacher, you have this capacity, you have the leverage to change your classroom, and you can do it. It's just a matter of saying, I need to make the time. That is why we need to ask ourselves, when you go into the classroom, recite the dua, Bismillahi wa ala barakatillah. Allah give me the barakah of this time, so that half an hour mustn't be a drudgery. And really, you can't be boring in your classroom. And so if you have a problem with language and pronunciation, do what I did. I used to practice in front of a mirror sometimes because I wanted to come out very articulate in front of the classroom. So alhamdulillah, there's so much to talk about, the outreach programs, taking children here, they're showcasing to them Islam, bringing children from non-Muslim backgrounds into a Muslim school, watching them watching us pray, so on and so forth. Alhamdulillah. Rafin, I'm open for questions at this point. Jazakallah khair.